Sometimes there are wonderful artists who can put it all together, bring it out in its vivid colors. And they're great writers or poets or painters, sculptors. They bring out reality, they make us recognize and see things. And really the fountain of art, of so much art in the world, is the Bible. It's amazing. And even though it's written and compiled over a long time with quite a fascinating, not fully understood combination of experiences in different times and different cultures, of reflections, of oral transmission of stories, family stories, of eventual writing the story, even the Gospels, which are very close to the facts, very shortly afterwards, are first of all oral telling, like the conversation on the way to Emmaus. And all of this comes together in one big book, the Bible, and it's so consistent, even though sometimes the scenery and the locations and the topics and the conversation and the personalities are so disparate, so different, so diverse. It's really amazing, all the literary forms, poetry and prose and proverbs, and it's just fascinating. And no wonder it has been the fountain of so much art, so much inspiration, the formation of all the arts. And today we have that very strong contrast packed together in the selection of readings we have. Absolutely brilliant. And I encourage you also to see it from that angle, even from the angle of plain humanity. And at the same time, we're dealing with the most divine reality and the effort of Ezekiel to describe it in the first chapter of his book. And the liturgy, as you know already, many times commented that it's a selection of text that fits a liturgical order, which means it fits a community's celebration of the sacred, of the divine in human reality, of salvation. And so it's not going to give us all the text that's there, because otherwise we'd be there for hours, and that just wouldn't work, because there's a little baby at home to be taken care of, there's somebody sick waiting, there's an urgent task at work to be done in the farm or in the high-rise building in the city center of the most modern cities. So the duties of life call, and these snippets are selected. And here we are with the first chapter of Ezekiel, and I recommend you to read it all. And you can do that very easily from the link I gave you. You just go to the scripture quote at the particular reading that you have, let's say Ezekiel in this case, and you just touch that scripture verses with the tip of your finger, and it springs you back immediately to the whole text of the chapter. And in this case, I'd encourage you to read the notes as well. And very often the notes are really wonderfully helpful to capture the extraordinary richness that's there. And they're very helpful today, particularly because the language of Ezekiel, you know, it's at times apocalyptic. It's visions of heaven that are attempted descriptions of that. How do you describe the divine? Where do you start? How do you capture the power, the mighty, the glory, the infinity, the brilliance, the intelligence, all of the attributes that we approach to perceiving and fail to grasp completely, and like a camera fails to grasp the beauty of the sunrise as we can see it with the naked eye, so the human mind captures just a faint shadow of the reality of God. And even apparently in eternity, the saints and the mystics tell us that, you know, it will be an endless exploration forever. Don't think you're going to be bored in heaven. On the contrary, it's going to be one amazing, endless, infinite fulfillment of all our expectations forever. And always new. And this is God, I mean, this is His world. So there are a lot of content points in the first reading of Ezekiel today that actually recur later and also earlier. The chariot of fire, you have the wheels and the fire, and we have that also, the chariot of fire. Apparently we have the only archaeological, I should be over near the synagogue, presentation of that in Israeli archaeology here on the Magdala stone, the wheels and the flames of fire underneath it. I really should have thought about being there for that this morning, but that's okay. You know it, you've seen it many times. So it's the majesty of God, how He's described by Ezekiel. I'm staying close this morning, guys, because I have to say goodbye to some people, and there's a group of people who came here. So it's amazing in these circumstances, you know. Life continues normal. So, and we're going to finish maybe a little early today as well, if you allow me. And even if you don't allow me, I might have to take my leave. Well, then we have this wonderful line from Psalm 148, you know, at the closing of the book of Psalms. There are 150 altogether. So, heaven and earth are filled with your glory. And we know that phrase. Heaven and earth are filled with your glory. Earth, yeah. I mean, the sunrise, the way water works, and ice and steam and atoms and cosmic families of galaxies and solar systems, and, you know, it's just one fascinating reality. Heaven and earth are full of your glory. And at the same time, we have this extraordinary grappling with the expressing the glory of God. And Ezekiel, you know, he's the son of a priest, so he's a priest, like Jeremiah was, and so he's very familiar with the temple and the temple language and imagery and significance. And he's also not afraid to involve the cultural elements locally. And we see those elements, the four animals, again, of the human being, and the four living creatures. And Christianity has recognized them as, associated them with each of the four Gospels. It's just amazing the continuity as well to our times of all the meaning here. Heaven and earth are filled with your glory. And then we turn the page over, or just scroll down in iPhone, in electronic language, just scroll down to Matthew 17. And don't forget that we're after the transfiguration. And that's a big turning point, because now there's something very secured. And also we're after the confession of Peter at Caesarea Philippi. And so Peter is in a very different place understanding Jesus' identity than he was before these events. And so he has a much greater, he should have a much greater process going on in his mind about who is this Jesus that he's with every day. That he's just simply more than a man, and more than a carpenter, and more than a rabbi. And so when the authorities ask for the temple tax, and when is your master going to pay it, he's in arrears, you know. and the humility of God, the radiance of humility, the way Jesus responds, let's pay the tax. Because this isn't the moment for a scene right now. There are other priorities that are being looked after. And it's no big deal. If I became flesh and I was born in a manger in Bethlehem, this little gesture of being here, incarnate Word, is not a problem. But I'm also in charge of creation, so go out and catch a fish and there's a coin there. It comes together so brilliantly, and it's a new brilliance. It's the brilliance of the glory of the divine in being compelled to deal with a stinking leper because his flesh is decaying. The humility of the crucifixion will be a maximum expression of paying the tax. He will pay all the laws. He will subject himself to the high priests. He will subject himself to the Roman authorities. He will subject himself to the centurion. He will subject himself to the two. So sorry for the interruption for those who missed it there. But so there's the humility we see in Jesus, so quietly present, the fullness of divinity, God made man, among the fishermen at the Sea of Galilee, among the disciples, among all the people who are beginning to believe in him. And he's not going to make waves. So gentle, meek and gentle of heart, respecting freedom, respecting the role each authority has. And then this teaches us that even in the greatest disasters, that our glory is in humility. Our glory is in forgiveness. Our glory is in love. Our glory is not in processing revenge and anger and protest and annihilation of those who do us damage. It's a time of redemption. It's a time of purification. It's a time of discovering our shared humanity. The one is arrogant and boastful and oppressing, and the other one is oppressed and suffering injustice. But in the light of this, instead of playing and being and only being victim, one can become triumphant, because one can participate with the divine glory that wills also to be here in the dirt with us, in the tear of the child, in the failing life of an elderly person, in a difficult neighbor, in an unsettled spouse at the moment. The glory of God is there in the relationship, in the handling, in the processing, like in this little flower here in the middle of nowhere. And you can see it here blooming. Nobody could see it because of the stones. And to have an eye, the eye of faith, the eye of hope, the eye of love, for a sunrise in life, for a new vision in all the darkness that can cover humanity, cover a people, cover a family, cover our soul. Mother Teresa, all that good she did, the glory people saw in her of God, and yet she was in darkness in her soul for about 50 years. St. Teresa of Avila, all those years in darkness. Amazing mystery of how divine glory is so concealed, like all the energy in an atom. E equals mc squared. So much hidden that we discover over time and that we'll discover in eternity. People, God bless you. See you later, alligators.